Hello, everybody. This is your girl, The Empress Speaks, and I want to thank you so much for viewing my channel today. Today is June 28th. It is Wednesday, Hump Day, and as previously mentioned, I would be sharing bits of my story with you. And today, in celebration of my 18 subscribers, I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of you all for trusting me on this journey with the readings and all of that. Understanding that energy is fluid, just as free will changes and alters a lot of the readings on a day-to-day basis. So take these readings with all of the tarot readers as it resonates, taking what applies to you and leaving what doesn't behind. Today, I'm going to be sipping on my favorite wine, which is a German wine. It's Wilhelm Bergman Dornfelder. And I'm out here in Texas, so our HEB sells this wine. I buy it by the case because I love it. And so I need to sip some wine as I tell you this story because it's an interesting one. So, I am a proud Leo sun, and in my 40s, hardworking, well-educated. I've worked in the academic administration industry for years, opening up colleges, vocational schools, proprietary schools, and universities all over the Southeast, the South, and Saudi Arabia. So, I've had a wonderful opportunity to go to a place that I've been fascinated with, which is Cairo, Egypt. I've actually been all over the Middle East and North Africa. So, several years ago, about 7 years ago, I met a gentleman who owned a group of for-profit schools. And he was trying to acquire a school that I worked at because it was getting ready to close down here in Austin, Texas. I met him. He was tall, dark, handsome, and the son of an Egyptian immigrant, or Egyptian immigrants. His mother and father were from Egypt, although he was raised in Michigan and California, Santa Rosa. So I met him and his sister. They both run the company, and there was an instant connection, very platonic. When I met his sister, and he and his sister, they were both had taken American names. They weren't using their Arabic name. But anyway, we talked about Egypt, we talked about Saudi Arabia, so there's an instant connection, and I almost felt like they were a kindred family. So put a pin in that because we're going to revisit that. So during one meeting with this individual and his sister, the CEO and COO of a company, they talked about acquiring two schools in Texas, one in San Antonio, one in Austin. And I was the campus president of the school in Austin. And they were really enamored with me, very much saying that out of all the staff on board, they only wanted to keep me if they were able to acquire the school. And, I thought that was intriguing, or I was intrigued by that. And impressed, but I have been in this game for a long time, and I know what I know, and I do what I do really well as far as opening colleges and transitioning at-risk schools and, the whole academic administration and accreditation process. So I asked, being the curious person I am, I said, why is it you all want only me to work for you? Why not, the other employees who were ratchet, by the way? I will say I wouldn't have wanted them either. They were a hot mess. So, he mentioned to me, there's something about you. And I'm like, oh, that's sweet, thinking absolutely nothing of it. And his sister told me, she said, well, we were looking, or trying to come up with a profile of someone in mind to run the Austin campus. And I'll be honest with you, I dreamed of you. And when I saw you, I said, that's her. I told X, that's her from my dream. Put a pin in that too, because how are immigrants from second generation immigrants from Egypt, having grown up in a very privileged lifestyle in Santa Rosa, California, or San Jose, dreaming of me, a little black girl from, hold on one second, my phone is ringing. Sorry about that. A little black girl from Alabama, grew up really poor, but was able to, go to college and educate myself and make something out of my life. So I was just curious and puzzled, as to why they wanted me. So, as fate would have it, he was not able to acquire the Austin campus, but he was able to acquire the San Antonio campus. And I had no desire to relocate to San Antonio. And plus, there was someone there, a team there that he was pretty much interested in keeping on. Okay. 7 years ago. Fast forward 2 years later, I get a call from the CEO of the company saying, "Hi, Tenishia, what are you doing?" At that time I was working for a school group, and I'd like for you to come out to California and run a college for me. And I'm like, oh no, it won't work, because although it was a six-figure salary, it was nothing that, it was too low, for me to relocate from Texas, and it was too far away. I just wasn't interested. And he was like, oh, I really want to work with you. I've been wanting to work with you since we met. And I said, well, now it's just not a good time. So I turned him down. So he contacted me again in December of last year. Now, prior to him contacting me, I noticed that someone from the Las Vegas area, CEO of a higher education, someone in higher education in the same industry as I was in, was on my LinkedIn profile, viewing my profile every day, several times a day, especially 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I get a call from this individual, and he says, "Hi, this is so-and-so." And I was like, "Hi, how are you doing?" "Good. I tell you," so he kind of cut to the chase, and he said, "I tell you what, you turned me down a few years ago, but I've got a school that I have in Las Vegas, and I really need you to come out here and run the school. I'd love to work for you. Work with you. I told you that before. And before you say no, just let me fly you out to Vegas. And worst case scenario, you have a free trip to Vegas, right?" Sounds good enough. So I said, okay, And then he says, "Where are you working now?" And before I could answer, he was like, "Oh, you really need to be changing lives, because you're working for the state of Texas just pushing paper. And that's not what you need to be doing." So I knew that he was a person lurking on my LinkedIn profile, because he knew exactly where I worked, and said I was pushing paper. And I was a strategic management analyst doing strategic planning and whatever for the state of Texas, pushing paper. That's what I was doing. Let me get a sip. Okay. All right. So this is where the story picks up. I go out to Vegas, and he picks me up from the airport. I hadn't seen him in several years, almost 7 at that point. And, for some reason, you just want to be cute. So I was cute, my airport run, but not, too much, but cute. And as I said, am I going to recognize him? And so as I'm at baggage claim, and I've gotten my luggage, and I'm looking around, and I see this tall, not so dark anymore, because his hair is like a platinum gray, but still very attractive, 6'4" man. He was well built, very well built. Lord, he was well built. And so when our eyes connected, it was weird because it was like I saw him before he saw me. I recognized him, and he was scanning baggage claim, trying to find me, and his eyes were like really. You can tell that he was really being intentional on finding me before I found him. And it's like, what does she look like? What does she look like? And so when he saw me, his eyes just lit up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and our eyes locked. It was weird. And then I was like, oh, shake it off, because you know he's married. Shake it off. And this is business. Let's get it. So, but that 3-4 second of eyes locking felt like an eternity. And so he was like, I said, so-and-so, I called his name, Bob. And he was like, Tenishia. And we hugged, embraced. It was a little too long of a hug, but it was what it was, okay? And I was like, wow, his body is amazing. Because, when you make that physical contact with a person, you feel that kinetic energy. And this is not made for children, okay? You got to be 18 and up to hear this, because I'm just going to keep it real. So the hug was so close, like my nipple was like up against his body. You know how you get that bone, that nipple bone, titty bone on somebody, on somebody's body. So we had that type of contact, and I was like, wow, that was a close hug, But I liked it, This girl had been single at that time for about 5 years, and celibate. Okay, so, and still is. Thank you. So anyway, so he grabs my baggage and my luggage, and we go to his vehicle. Beautiful car. And so he opens the door, buckles me in, and off we go. He's like, well, first I want to take you around the city a little bit before I take you to your hotel. I was staying at the Palms Resort on the Strip. So we're riding around in this beautiful car, and it felt like, if anyone's ever been in a twin flame union, it felt like I had known him forever, and we were supposed to be together. And I know it sounds crazy, and I've got children, or at least my son, who's my subscriber and supporter, that may listen to it, but it was just a weird connection, like I was supposed to be right there in that moment, and we had finally reunited after forever. That's just what it was. So we were just chatting and talking about traffic, and we went by the campus. It was beautiful. And so it was a brief trip that day. And then he took me back to the hotel, got me checked in. We hugged each other. So the next day, he picked me up, brought me over to the campus, and everyone knew that I was probably the incumbent campus director, the new one, because he had already introduced him and said, please be very nice to her because we really need her. And so everyone was super nice. But what was a little bit odd is that I met an attorney that day, and he is a third partner in the business. And so he was sitting in the executive office next to the campus director's office, and he said, sit here, I want you to meet someone. And he introduced him to me, and I said, oh, so what do you do here? He was like, oh, I don't work here. I'm a third partner, and I just flew in because I wanted to meet you. So customarily, even in smaller organizations, you do not meet a third partner on it, not even an interview, but on just a probing visit. So I was like, okay, this is a little odd, but no worries. And so did the tour of the campus while, and then engaged with the staff. They really liked me. I thought they were cool. Everybody was on their best behavior. You didn't know how crazy and wicked they were, or I didn't find out how crazy and wicked they were until a few months later. But I didn't sense anything. Everything was very much staged and pretentious, and I wasn't able to see through some of the entities and energies that were that I would later find to prevail at that institute. So the that night, I had reached out to one of my friends who was a campus director at another college, and he said, "Let's get together, and I'll, take you to the Hoover Dam and around Vegas a little bit," because he had been living out in Nevada for a few months before I got there. And so the CEO knew this individual because we all work in the same industry, so you kind of get to know each other. And he said, "Well, tonight I'll be picking you up for dinner so that you and the CEO, the COO, and we'll all go out for dinner." And I was like, "No, I've already made plans. I'm going out with my friend Chris. He's going to pick me up." And the energy changed immediately. He was like, "Well, why are you doing that?" I was like, "Well, yeah, Chris is here. I've not seen him in like 2 years, and I just really want to hang out with him." And I said, "I'll catch you guys another day." And he was like, "Well, what are you going to see? What are you going to do? What time why doesn't he come here? What's going on?" So he was really angst about it. And I shook it off like, yeah, he's just protective. And he, insisted that I did not rent a car so that he would pick me up and take me everywhere. And I was like, "Oh no, I can Uber. Thank you for being so hospitable and putting me up in a very nice hotel and paying for my meals and all that stuff. But I'm grown. I got this." So, but anyway, I can tell he was worried about me hanging out with a friend of mine. Mind you, I'm in my late 40s. I can do whatever the hell I want to do and go wherever I want to go. But I found it odd that he was just kind of taken aback by that and almost against it. So the following day, he was like, "Well, what is it going to take you to get you here?" We did some negotiations at the corporate office. I got what I was asking for in relocation, and then he introduced me to the leadership team at the campus and was like, I've been wanting to work with Tenishia for a while. She turned me down a few years ago. I'm so happy to announce that she will become our next campus director here in Las Vegas. I'm so looking forward to that. I'll tell you a story how I tried to acquire a campus where she was working, and she's the only one that I ever wanted. And I'm like, that didn't sound right. And that was something he would continuously say for the first month that I was employed there. I got a bump behind my neck. It's weird. I don't know what it is. It's weird. But so anyway, later that afternoon, no, the following day, I went, looking for an apartment, or either the day after I was looking for an apartment. So that night, he said, "I'd like to introduce you to my wife." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, whatever. Maybe this is like a cultural thing. Maybe it's something that they do in Egypt. I don't know, So I said, "Okay, that's fine." So that evening we had dinner, his sister, myself, and his wife. And when I met her, I was like, wow, I was expecting, I don't know, the stereotypical trophy wife, blonde, blue eyes. I don't know what I was expecting, but what I saw was not what I was expecting. Not that this individual was a bad looking or unattractive person, but just totally did not fit the mold. The I don't know, the stereotypical build of what you would think someone like this individual would be with, considering he did bodybuilding, also had a personal fitness training program and a millionaire status. I just didn't expect what I saw. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you can tell that this individual, the spouse, lacked in self-esteem. She's very much overweight. Not that I'm fat shaming, but just was what it was, very plain, basic, to be honest with you. And I was like, oh. So and I made a point to be very nice and cordial and complimentary. and it was genuine and sincere. I just wanted to make sure that she didn't feel in any way threatened because I didn't see, other than seeing an attractive man, I had no desires or intentions to do anything or to move or advance on someone like that. And he's my boss. You don't eat where you shit or shit where you eat, whatever the case. So I noticed that she kept her head down, and I observed that there was no chemistry. It was weird. It was like two brothers. He and I had more chemistry, and we sat across from each other. She sat next to him, and she was like, "I shouldn't be eating this much. I'm trying to lose weight, but I'm taking some type of drug she was taking to lose weight, and she was also taking that Ozempic stuff, and she was like, it's supposed to curb my appetite, but I'm still eating so much. And she was eating a lot. She was eating a hell of a lot. So, and I was like, okay, she's definitely got some insecurities and some issues with her weight. And they have no chemistry. That's what I noticed. So this is in November. I'm sorry, not December, November. So in December, I made the trip out to Vegas, relocated, and started work on December the 5th. Let me roll back before December, before I left, while I was there in November, before Thanksgiving. I had found a few apartments that I wanted to look at. So he had his sister pick me up, and she took me around the city and to my apartment complex. We found one that was right off the 215, about 12 minutes away from work. Beautiful apartment complex in the Summerlin area, gorgeous. So keep in mind, she knew exactly where I lived, the sister. So same one who said she had dreamed about me. Yeah, okay. So in December, I start working there. We have a Christmas party. I said, I don't know if I want to go because I'm pretty much a hermit. I'm trying to figure things out. So he's like, no, it'd be great for you to come to the Christmas party and get to know all of your staff and let your hair down and the staff from the other campus, because there's two campuses in Vegas. So it was nice. I show up a little bit late, and I'm fashionably late too. And I see all of the executives at a raised table on the stage, and everybody else is sitting down lower like peasants. Shit was crazy. And I see her looking a little dumpy up on the stage, way in the corner, tucked in the corner, like almost like she was hidden. And so I go over and I, say good evening to everyone and give them a hug. And again, you can feel the chemistry, almost the heat coming off that hug. And if you're a twin flame, when you know, you know. And so I was like, this is weird. Let me go sit down and get a drink. So the night went on, and I kind of watched them a little bit, and he made a toast and all that stuff, and very much an amazing speaker, very captivating. He's also a Leo. And so I was thinking to myself, interesting. He's mingling with the crowd, talking to everybody. She's not getting up at all. Everyone is, some people were overdressed. They had on gowns or evening gowns, and, others had on cocktail dresses. And I was, I was looking cute, but, I wasn't trying to attract anyone. I was just trying to be cute. So I got ready to leave a little bit early because I didn't want to stay too late and be inebriated. And it looks like people were getting lit. So as I'm walking out of the venue, I hear the CEO calling the name of the person I was walking with, who also worked there. And he's like, Elizabeth, really loud. And in my instinct and my intuition said, why is he trying to get my attention by calling her name? And he was like, can you come back? And my intuition said, oh, I think he wants me to say goodbye to them. And I didn't. I was like, it just wasn't my scene because people had been drinking, and at that time, he said he didn't drink at all, and he wasn't drinking, but others were. And you know how that coworker scene gets when everybody's drinking. So I decided to head on back to my side of town, and this is where the story gets really interesting. I think it was after that night when I started having weird dreams, um, really strange dreams that I don't think were my own, because I just didn't have, you know, I just didn't have that type of intention in my head. As far as the workplace, we grew very close really quick. Our partnership in doing things and conquering obstacles at the campus was instantly kinetic. We were like the Bonnie and Clyde, the yin and yang when it came to running that campus. He would not, the corporate office was about 15 miles away. He would spend more time at my campus, in the office next door to mine, or in my office all the time. And we would talk for hours, and it was work related, and it was about family, it was about Egypt, it was about Dubai, it was about working overseas and going into Saudi Arabia, so we could talk for hours. And then we started having lunch together every day. Our campus had a cafeteria or a diner, and we would have lunch every day, and it was like two best friends talking about everything, until I saw something resonate. I saw something in his eyes change, like a familiarity, like compassion, and love. And if you've ever been in love and you know what it looks like, that endearing look, like, yeah, that's what it was. And so then came all of the love bombing and all of the, I need to protect you because I think these staff trying to take advantage of you and not doing what they're supposed to do. And then the energy got really dark around January, February-ish, really quick. People were quitting, the turnover was ridiculous, and there was a whole lot of upheaval at the campus, and we were on the news for administering tests improperly. It was just a mess, a nightmare. And then things just got progressively worse. The energy and the attraction was obvious, and people started to recognize it, and the flirtatious behavior became more overt. And so, I was very cautious with my words and not to overstep my boundaries, which I had a lot of boundaries up, but I think around as early as December, mid-December, I started to have wild dreams, sex dreams, dreams I had not experienced very vividly, almost every evening, about this individual. The sexual chemistry was, it was off the chain. There were these looks, they're just, hugs. He would come all the way over to the campus for a hug, and wandering hands just accidentally touching my ass. Just different stuff, And I was like, yeah, I got to pull away from this because, number one, I'm not a homewrecker. I don't even think like that. But I began to think like that. I had these boundaries that were very definitive. And then I was feeling like I was losing sight of that, losing sight of the boundaries, having communications with him on the weekends, and getting ready to move into an uncharted territory, and not uncharted, but a forbidden territory. And the emotions and the feelings were growing so quickly but it was unrequited. I noticed at some point it became unrequited, and he was starting to posture a little bit where he would create these passionate arguments with me where he would scream and yell and curse and hang up the phone. And I think that was so other people would be thrown off on what was happening with the connection, because his brother-in-law worked at the corporate office as well. So, I think there were rumors about, hey, I think the CEO was really into his campus director. Even when we had corporate meetings, people could see the energy and the chemistry. So we had a very heated argument, and then we didn't talk to each other for a week. And so finally, he comes to the campus to apologize after this argument. And the apology is weird. And I said, look, are you going to apologize or what? And I noticed that he was emotionally disconnected. So he struggled to apologize. He came up with something, and it was so damn weird and awkward. So about a month later, I started to intuitively recognize that somebody was in my energy, and it wasn't the feelings that I was having weren't my own. So I started to be very strategic and combative in terms of, trying to protect my energy. And I didn't give him any attention, and, didn't give in to this, in and out behavior, flirtatiousness and all that stuff. I was like, look, this is not right. It doesn't make any sense. I need to step back. And that's when things got hostile. And I think it was in March, I noticed a lot of flirtatious behavior, but not with me, but with someone newly hired into the organization. And it was almost like I was being put in competition, but I, wasn't in competition, if you know what I mean. And so in April, I received an email early in the morning, like 3 a.m., from one of the executive officers who's citing how terribly bad the school group is doing, and that it was basically my fault. And so I was like, oh, this is weird. There's no way I would have received an email like this unless the CEO knew about it. So I called him and I said, what's going on? Why am I being blamed for all of the shortcomings of the school when I can look at the performance metrics and see what's going on and da-da-da-da-da, and how I've had market improvement since, I came over to this school group and took over this campus. Anyway, he wasn't hearing it. You can tell that I was set up for this passionate argument. And he started yelling and screaming and cursing. And I said, I simply wanted to know if I was being set up, and it really feels like I am. And I don't know what my rights are in the state of Nevada, but I really want to find out, because it looks like I'm going to be put on a performance improvement plan. Are you setting me up to fire me or something? I said, I need to know what my rights are. He was like, don't you threaten me. Are you threatening me with litigation? And I said, no. I said, I just need to know what my rights are, because it feels like my job is not secure. And this is a right to work state. And so it got ugly, and he hung up. And I didn't hear from him for a week. And then out of the blue, I started feeling anxious energy, like something was happening. There's a lot of different things happening around the campus, to include fire in the building, issues with the water, the sewage backing up. I mean, when I said the shit hit the fan, it literally shit hit the fan. And so I was like, something is wrong. I was working an exorbitant amount of time, like 12, 14, 15-hour days, including some Saturdays, every other Saturday. And it seemed like he was taking my energy. The more I worked, the happier he was. the less of a work-life balance I had, the more exuberant he was, the more energized he was. And so my HR manager contacted me and she said, if you're at the campus, I need you to leave. Well, actually, she had her friend contact me. She said, if you're at the campus, I need you to leave. Something is about to go down, and I think it's going to involve you. And I was like, being the Leo I am, I'm like, I'm not scared. I am not leaving. But my intuition and spirit said, leave. Something is happening. And so, to make a long story short, they had come over there to try to terminate me, which they eventually did the following Monday. This happened on a Friday. And so on Monday, the corporate office and HR came over and terminated me with 4 months of pay. So I was like, okay, good, I'm going home. And I did. I went home and back to Texas, came back here to Texas. But the expectation was that I would run behind or chase this individual and say, well, why did you do this? And can we talk? Or da-da-da-da-da. And I never did, which in turn caused a major tower moment, because that was what I was set up for, to have this calamity. And not, he was aware of the connection, had known of me because they are members of a particular cult, and they use earth angel energies to gain wealth and other things. I was going to be sacrificed. I later found out. You put all, hindsight is 2020. You put all the pieces together, and I don't say that lightly. I have found out about cameras in my home and pictures. As women, once we lose weight, we're taking pictures of ourselves, looking sexy. Those pictures were taken off of my phone. He had them. Cameras were in my apartment. I saw a gentleman step out from my apartment door, and I didn't want to believe I was seeing what I was seeing, so I reconciled it. I rationalized it. It was one evening, late evening. I was coming home from work, and the way our apartments are set up, it's about 18 feet between the units, so it's kind of set up like a townhome, if you know what that is. So this individual stepped off my front door, off the little step. And I was like, that's weird. Maybe it's the Latter-day Saints, because we had a lot of them out there at the complex. But I did not recognize this individual, and had on a trench coat. And it was if he had stepped out of my apartment. And I was like, no, I couldn't be seeing that. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, the next apartment over is about 18 feet because there's a garage in between the units. So where was he coming from? I shook it off. One late night, as I was closing the campus building, I drove around the backside of the building and I saw a Tesla parked out, and the windows were tinted very dark, and I was, like, okay, let me just see if they need some help, if it's one of my students. It wasn't a student. The person, shouted some expletives, and when I asked, were they okay? Do they need any help? And there's like, lady, just leave, da 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 da. And I was like, okay. So I advised them that I was going to be calling the police, and then they eventually sped off. My spirit guides advised me that that individual was there, not by coincidence. a lot of things like that started to happen, to include seeing someone that worked for the campus, that's an ex-con, out by my apartment complex. And this individual has really long dreadlocks, so it was kind of easy to recognize him. And I was like, wow, I wonder what he's doing out here. So a lot of things began to happen, which I'm going to share in Patreon to let me know what was going on behind the scenes. And I'm very reluctant to share this, I'll be honest with you. It's really hard because you never expect for anything like this to happen to you. The things that I knew about were embarrassing enough, but the unknown things, or the things that were revealed to me, it's just utterly shocking. For those of you who don't believe in secret societies, sexual cults, sexual cults, cults, sex cults, sex magic, dark magic. Let me be the first to tell you it's real. My story is real. I've not had any mental illness, but there are individuals that are members of cults that know how to tap into the Akashic records, which is what they were doing. I didn't do a birth chart reading on myself until 2 months ago, and found out about, wealth, towards the latter part of my life, and from her inheritance and this and that, and things I had not paid any attention to. But there are individuals that are able to do that. And they do. And they will sacrifice earth angels. They will sacrifice anyone. I later found out about this individual's ties and connections to Los Angeles, to a particular satanic cult, which he is high-ranking warlock over. There's a lot of things that are hidden to us, and is in the spirit world, that we just need to be more aware of. And I think this community, my soul tribe, that has helped me during my healing, has been phenomenal. But a lot of individuals who don't know will think that you're crazy, think that you don't know what you're talking about, because you can't always see the signs or evidence of this in the 3D, but it certainly does exist. I am going to be sharing more of the story with you all, and more explicit details in Patreon. But if you have ever experienced anything like this, or if you are going through something like this, there are things you can do to protect yourself. There are ways that you can make sure you guard your energy. Trust your intuition. Try to find like-minded people that are a member of your soul tribe that can help you out of the situation. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other, and I wish you all love, peace, and abundance. If you like this video and you like the vibe, please share and subscribe. Oh, thank you for your likes. Take care.